Hello and welcome to Fitzdares World of Sport in association with Boodles. Check them out at boodles.com. It's episode 8. I'm your host, Adrian Clarke, and coming up on today's show, fresh from tipping up an outstanding 83-1 treble on his last appearance on this show, respected horse racing broadcaster Cornelius Lysaght turns his eye towards the Derby and the Oaks. Ahead of a potential World Cup classic against Andorra, we debate who Thomas Tuchel should be building his England team around ahead of next summer's tournament. And we also ask if there's any market value to be had as we get into the latter stages of the French Open at Roland Garros. So then, who's with me in the studio today? Then sadly, there is no Lola Katz-Roberts this week, but ahead of a bumper weekend in Budapest, Henry Beesley has hot-footed it to the studio with his suitcase in hand. How are you, Henry?
Good, thanks, Clarke. Yeah, good.
Yeah, you're looking forward to Budapest?
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Okay, good stuff. I'm back by popular demand after some ridiculously good shouts on his last Fitzdares World of Sport outing. The brilliant Cornelius Lysaght is also with us. Cornelius.
I think it was meant to have been a quartet last time, and I managed to name 5 horses, so I can't count. That was established, but I was... Every dog has his day, and the first, which is expression I thought I'd say before Henry did. First three races on Boodle's Chester Cup Day, and the runner-up in the Chester Cup, only beaten a whisker. So all in all, I'm absolutely terrified coming to the studio today because the chances of a repeat are practically zero.
Got a reputation to maintain now, Corn.
I'll be back. If I'm back next time, it'll be by unpopular demand.
I wish I'd put some money on, I have to say. That was quite some going. Right, let's start with the Derby then, shall we? The Derby Festival.
I'll tell you what, it's from a betting point of view, it's as good a Derby as I can remember really for quite some time, because it's not just about 3 talented Coolmore runners and which one's Ryan Moore going to ride. It's not just about a 2,000 Guineas winner. It's not just about 2 horses trained by Rafe Beckett, both of which have real credentials, one of which won the Dante, which is an ever reliable trial. And it's not just about a couple of really talented French horses coming. It's the biggest field for over 20 years.
Why is it so big?
I suspect because you can't suddenly say there are a whole lot of brilliantly talented horses this year. The fact is there's no real super at this stage. There might well be come 3:45 on Saturday, but at the moment there's no standout horse, so everyone wants a go. And that's exactly what a lot of people are trying to do.
Well, let's give you the odds as they stand. Of course, these could change ahead of the start time.
Can I throw in a few comments as you're going along?
You can do, of course you can. 3:30, of course, on Saturday afternoon. Fitzdares are paying out 4 places. Delacroix 5-2,
and Ryan Moore riding that. So that's obviously something that a lot of people are listening to.
Yeah, Ruling Court 3-1.
2,000 Guineas winner. Will its stamina last out the 1.5 miles?
Pride of Arras 5-1.
Winner of the Dante Stakes, trained by Rafe Beckett, the man of Rossa Ryan. They are the coming duo as well, those two. That has absolutely outstanding credentials.
Okay,
and it'll go on the ground because we're expecting rain on Saturday morning.
Good to know. The Lion in Winter, which was the previous favourite, of course, has drifted to 6-1.
Should not be discounted just because it got beaten the other day. Somebody said to me earlier on, but it wants the ground to be as hard as possible. However, its mum won on soft ground. So if we take any notice of these things, admittedly,
does it always work out like that?
No, absolutely doesn't. However, and it wasn't a superstar race that she won, but she won on soft ground. So there's no real reason why you could just put a line straight through that horse. And, we'll talk more about him in a minute. I think he's really interesting.
Lambourne 10-1, that's come in, that's shortened.
That was the one in the last podcast I said couldn't win the Derby. Unfortunately, you never picked up on that, but I'm sure you will do if it wins the Derby. It's drawn in the absolute magic stall, stall 10. 11 winners of the race from stall 10, so that's a big plus for Lambourne.
Yeah, maybe that's why it's come in. Damasus 12-1, and Midak supplemented 14-1.
And the thing about that, is it just a sentimental runner because it was owned and bred by the Aga Khan and the Derby is being run in memory of the Aga Khan, or does it have real credentials? And I think it has, as does the other French contender, real, and it's 75 grand. These people haven't got, they don't need to worry about 75 grand. However, they don't like spending 75 grand unless it's quite serious. So that's a couple of late entries for that amount of money.
So, Henry, who's catching your eye?
Well, I mean, as Cornelius said, it's a really good field, isn't it? I mean, over the years, we've not necessarily seen 19 go to post in this. And what's nice is it's not all about one horse. We've got, like we've talked about this before, there's probably 5 or 6 horses in here
I think 7, 8, 9 even.
You could make a really strong case for. I did want to ask you, Cornelius, we'll start with the favourite in Delacroix. As you mentioned, the choice of Ryan Moore, it's quite easy to see why he's favourite. I thought his profile is quite interesting, isn't it? Because he's run, I think, 7 times, had a pretty hard time of it as a juvenile. It's not necessarily something you always see from Derby winners. What are your thoughts?
They're not worried about that, are they? The Ballydoyle Coolmore team, Aidan O'Brien, the trainer, they don't worry. If they think the horse is okay to run, it runs, and they like to, what's the expression? They like to dance every dance if they can. Ryan Moore couldn't not. I don't think he couldn't not have ridden this horse because all 3 of the Coolmore horses, the Aidan O'Brien trained horses, have credentials. Delacroix, Lambourne, and A Lion in Winter. He can only ride one, and I bet you it's pretty close between the 3. But he's won 2 trials on Delacroix. Delacroix's won 2 trials, beating other contenders in the field. I think he had to ride that. But I mentioned A Lion in Winter before. A Lion in Winter is absolutely intriguing because he was the potential star, the one they were talking up like mad. He did get beaten in the Dante, but he didn't run awfully.
Wasn't he, as well?
He didn't run as badly as City of Troy or Gus Rodin did in the Guineas. They were absolutely stuffed. This horse wasn't stuffed. He was beaten, and he was disappointing because he'd been talked up. I think that he's with Colin Keane riding.
That's
a
good
superb
booking,
jockey. I was watching Colin Keane ride at the Curragh this week. He looks more and more the part. More and more the part. Ho ho. But I've just got a feeling that he'll run all right.
I know you mentioned City of Troy and August Rodin, who blew out obviously in the Guineas and then went on to win the Derby.
They really blew out, didn't they?
There is a slight difference in there though in blowing out in the Guineas compared to a Dante sake. It's a bit further along. We haven't seen necessarily horses blow out in the Dante and then come back and win a Derby. I just think with the Lion in Winter, I mean, he's 6-1 now. If he wasn't trained by Aidan O'Brien, now that is a huge caveat, obviously, because the man's a genius, obviously, but he'd be double figures, wouldn't he? Getting up towards 16.
But the fact is, he is trained by Aidan
That
O'Brien,
is true,
So I know exactly what you mean.
Faith.
But you could argue the other way round. If 1 or 2 of these were trained by Aidan O'Brien, they'd be a lot shorter. What price do you think Pride of Arras would be if it was trained by?
This is what I wanted to ask you. I think, would he probably be favourite? If he was trained by Aidan O'Brien?
Well, Ryan Moore would be riding him, wouldn't he?
Exactly,
But then that stall, that would have just had put a question mark.
So what's his stall?
So his stall number, 16.
16, right.
And no horse has ever won the Derby from stall 16. However, there is one caveat here, is we haven't always had the 16 stall in operation. But even so, it is quite a striking stat.
10 of the last 13 winners of the Derby came from stalls 7 to 12. Now, Lambourne, you've already mentioned it, in the plum slot of 10. Ruling Court is in 7.
He's all right.
Lion in Winter, 19.
Yeah.
And Delacroix, as we talked about, in 14. So, do you think it will come into play? Let's talk about Ruling Court then, shall we?
Just a word about the draw first of all. So the reason for that, if you're low, so you're on the as you're looking across the racecourse, you're nearest to us. There's a sort of everyone goes to the right to start with, so that is a disadvantage. Then they come back to the left, so you can get squeezed out at that point. Then if you're drawn very high, you could find yourself going to Tattenham Corner and around Tattenham Corner very wide. But if you're really good, I'm not sure it would necessarily matter. Okay. But there are those facts about the stalls. Numbers 2, Stanhope Gardens, 11, Tornado Alert, and 16, Pride of Arras, have never produced the Derby winner.
Interesting, yeah. And I think we were talking about Lambourne earlier. We've seen some money for him. I think.
Yeah. Can you imagine? So he won at Chester.
I was going to ask you, Cornelius, who was the last Chester Vase winner to win the
Rule of the World? Was it?
Rule of the World is the correct answer, yes. And then Wings of Eagles ran in the race, finished third at Chester, and then won the Derby at a massive price, I think 40-1.
And that, just picking up on that for 1 second, although we always talk about what's Ryan Moore riding, he doesn't always get it right because he wasn't on Wings of Eagle and he wasn't on Serpentine.
Yeah.
And Serpentine,
your finest day, Cornelius.
Serpentine, I must say, ran it in the it was the pandemic Derby, wasn't it? So there was no one there, the COVID Derby, and we didn't have a Fitzdares podcast, but I did tip the winner.
25-1.
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah,
Well, on
not that I keep going on about it.
On that, 19 of the last 23 winners of the Derby have been 7-1 or shorter in the betting. But based on what you've been saying, maybe this might be a year that
I don't think.
bucks the
I think
trend.
there've been plenty of derbies where there's been an absolute standout horse, or even two standout horses.
Yeah.
But now, well, we may say on Saturday that actually there is a standout horse in the race, and we should have talked about it more. But there are, I think Henry said, 5, 6, 7 that might win. I honestly think there'd be 8, 9, 10 that you wouldn't fall over in amazement if they won. But having said that, the market reflects it to an extent, because if you look at the first 8 or 9 in the betting, you're not actually getting to massive prices, are you?
Yeah.
I know that Lola is quite sweet on Stanhope Gardens at 16-1. Can you make a case?
Yeah, definitely, because the horse was beaten in a photo by Delacroix at Newmarket last year. So clearly it's trained by Rafe Beckett. Although we've all been talking about Pride of Arras, is Pride of Arras actually the number one string? In fact, they're sort of joint first strings, if you like. And Rafe Beckett's his operation has become so big that saying Ross Orion is on one horse and Hector Crouch is on the other isn't really, because they are. Ross Orion won the Arc for him, and I suppose Ross Orion rides the bigger horses. But Hector Crouch is right in there and is really talented as a rider as well. So, Stanhope Gardens, you wouldn't... I'd love to have a laugh at Lola's expense, but on this occasion, I'm afraid I can't.
I wanted to just ask you as well, Cornelius, in a bit more detail about ruling court. So we say there's, as things stand, it looks like there's no standout horse in the race.
But perhaps there is.
He could be, right? The last 2,000 Guineas winner to follow up in the Derby?
Go on, tell me.
Camelot. It's hard to do. That was 2012, so it's very difficult to do.
Lots have run well in the Guineas, and clearly the Guineas is over half a mile shorter.
Yeah.
But over the years, the 2,000 Guineas has very often proved a really good guide for the race. But so what are the plus points? The plus points is he's won the Guineas.
Yeah.
The plus point is he's clearly got absolutely bags of talent, and another plus point is a team that know their horses really well and are very good judges of their horses seem moderately confident that he's going to be okay. But the stamina is a question mark. And William Buick, when quizzed about the stamina in the sort of build-up, has not been definitive. I think he'll stay. I'll ride him accordingly, I think was one of his expressions. And the other thing, of course, about the Guineas is there is a school of thought, and not everyone agrees with this, that he was a fortunate winner of the 2,000 Guineas because the runner-up didn't win on that occasion and has won since. But then equally, you might argue, he beat a horse who's now won the Irish 2,000 Guineas.
The form obviously looks pretty strong, doesn't it? I just think it's sort of 11-4, 3-1.
Is that too short?
I think there's a huge question mark over the stamina there, isn't there? As you've mentioned, is there? You'll know this better than me. Is there stamina in the pedigree?
Well, there is enough in the pedigree to make people question whether that's going to be is going to be an issue. Martin Dwyer, the jockey who rode Sir Percy to win the Derby and won an Oaks as well, and won a Coronation Cup. It's relatively unusual to have won all three of the big Epsom races. Says just don't get. He was saying to me the other day, don't get seduced into thinking because there's a lot of downhill. The mile and a half, your stamina isn't really necessarily going to be as big an issue as, say, a mile and a half at Ascot or something like that. But he said that's absolute. He didn't actually say nonsense. He used a different word. Absolute rubbish, he said. And that is the big question mark. If he stays, he's clearly got an outstanding chance. If he does stay, he won't be staying much further.
Can I ask you about the weather? because it
big
is
question
rainy. It is
this
not
because
nice.
you want to know what to wear?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's horrible at the moment, and I don't think the forecast is going to be any better.
Yeah, I think horrible it means that you've forgotten that it used to rain in Britain an awful lot. It's going to be. There is a chance it's going to be damp.
And who does this suit? Who does this go against?
Well, who does it really? It won't be an issue for Delacroix.
Yeah, we've seen him handle some juice on the ground, haven't we?
And I'm not Pride of Arras, who I'm loving Pride of Arras, partly because he's only ever run twice.
Yeah.
So there must be much more to come. He has got some siblings. Admittedly, it was over hurdles, which probably his supporters won't want to hear. But this is a horse that has siblings that handles soft ground on the flat and over hurdles. So don't think it's a real issue for him. I know there are those who think for Lion in Winter it's going to be a particular issue.
He wants it wrestling, doesn't he? I think.
It's not going to be a monsoon. It's not going to be heavy ground or anything like that. And if these horses are good enough to take part in the Derby, they should be good enough to deal with a bit of good to soft ground.
I think we're only talking about, they were saying like the slower side of good, weren't they? Is what we're predicting.
But let's say good to soft.
Yeah.
But imagine how much rain, if you've got a garden or you've got a park or fields near where you live, there's been so little rain of late, it would take a heck of a lot of it to make a big difference. And Epsom is no different to many other parts of the world.
And Epsom is an unusual course. It's got different cambers. It's got that, obviously, the big hill that you were talking about. And I believe that certain that long striding horses are better suited to the Derby rather than those that sort of go at a rate.
You've got
of knots.
stats, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. There are various stats. I won't
there
go
are
into
so many
them.
stats nowadays that you can, gosh, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah.
Who's got a long stride?
Say, just on the eye test, whose action do you think is going to necessarily suit Epsom, and whose perhaps probably won't?
Well, and we'll be wrong about some of these, won't we? Because there will be a horse that we're talking up like mad at the moment that doesn't win the Derby, and they'll say course didn't suit or whatever.
Didn't handle the track.
What didn't handle the track. What I really, I'm coming back to Pride of Arras, is that's got relations who perform well on the racecourse.
Yeah.
So that's good. I think that's one of the many credentials that Pride of Arras has got. But there are plenty of others. Basically the bigger names here, and there are the more prominent contenders ought to be absolutely fine.
Yeah. I understand that Fitzdares have laid a couple of interesting.
So
tickets.
Cornelius, obviously a huge fan of Pride of Arras. He's 5-1 at the moment. We've actually laid a couple of 50-1 bets on him, anti-post. That was
how long ago would that have been?
That was after his first run.
Okay.
Did he make his debut at Sandown?
Yeah. And it was a race that Rafe Beckett has used as a good springboard.
Yeah.
But when he came to the Dante, this is one of the reasons. If you look at your big horses here, you look at those Coolmore horses. They've been around a bit, so we know to an extent what we've got, even if they are still improving. The French horses, the Aga Khan's horse is particularly interesting, actually, because that one's only run 3 times, the Aga Khan stud horse. But this one has only run twice. So once last year, full of promise. Then things didn't go quite right this year, so straight to the Dante, and he's won that in great style.
Yeah.
But only on his second run. So the chance of a further leap forward is absolutely.
I've got another stat for you on that. 12 of the past 16 winners had no more than 4 runs.
This is why I was mentioning Delacroix at the start of the.
My excitement, I'm not on a downer on them, but I'm just on a particular upper on Pride of Arras, because there could be, and to be fair, there are others in the field as well. But to come and win the Dante like that, and second time
as well.
out.
We were watching it in the Fitzdares office. He was really weak on the day as well. He kind of probably doubled in price. I think he was about 20-1. At the post time for that race. So if you're on him at 50-1, you're on a very, very nice ticket, it's fair to say.
And then if you like him, Demises is a horse that was perhaps a little bit luckless in the race. The pair were well clear. If they ended up being the first 2 at Epsom, you wouldn't fall over in amazement. What sort of price is that? Demises is about 12-1 or something like that.
12-1.
Yeah. So to go back to our original theme, what is really exciting about this it's the 246th Derby. We must always shout about the heritage because I know you'll be talking about in a minute about tennis, and you'll be talking in a minute about international football. But those sports have got absolutely nothing on this sport, and it's something that racing sometimes is a little bit sort of reticent about, because people then turn that into, oh, you're all a bunch of fuddy-duddies, which is nonsense. But the fact is, this race has been staged since 1780. Racing, the classics have been staged since 1776, and they've got 100 years on things like Wimbledon, on things like the major football competitions, the FA Cup, and all that kind of thing. So it's something. It's 246 derbies.
It is a brilliant event.
And it's dripping with heritage. It's dripping with intrigue. It's dripping with talent. It's dripping with with good performances and bad performances. And it's something to really look forward to. And this is a very small C, I think, a classic version of the Epsom Derby.
Very nice. Look, and I've got to say, the last 15 minutes or so was dripping with insight. That was absolutely brilliant. So let's move it on to the Oaks. As we speak, these are the prices. Fitzdares paying 3 places. It's a smaller field, of course. Desert Flower, the 11 to 8 favourite. That's the 1,000 guineas winner.
Yeah.
Mini Hawk, 7 to 2. Whirl, 13 to 2. That one's come in. Giselle, 8 to 1. Drifting. Elwatine from Godolphin. That's shortened as well to 10 to 1, and Revoir is 12 to 1. Now, Aidan O'Brien has won this 10 times.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the favourite this year. He has the next 3, doesn't he, in the market?
Yeah, and Godolphin, the big Coolmore opponents have got Desert Flower.
Yeah.
The winner, as you say, of the 1,000 guineas, I think she'll stay okay. I think she will take a heck of a lot of beating. However, I think Coolmore's... so we look at those Coolmore horses. Ryan Moore on Mini Hawk. And Colin Keane on Giselle, and Wayne Lawden on Whirl.
I quite like her. Yeah,
I completely.
Yeah, I quite like her.
I can, from my sentence, I don't quite like her. I like her.
Yeah.
And the fact is that the step forward she made from run 1 to run 2 was really striking. So what price do you say? 7 to 1 or something? Is it
on
Whirl?
Whirl is 13 to 2.
But I think that, especially clearly that's how many runners?
Yeah, 9 runners. You're betting
an
each way 3
price.
places. Yeah.
I think Whirl's, and I think there's an old-fashioned expression, an each-way knocker.
Yeah,
I think it's an each-way knocker.
Yeah, I just wanted to start with the favourite, Cornelius. You've got no doubts over stamina. I do think she was 5 to 4, even 6 to 5. Over the last couple of days, she's drifting slightly.
But that's probably because she was so short, wasn't it?
Well, this is the question. I was thinking she's still pretty short for a horse who's got to prove it. The extra half mile is, we just talked about, a mile and a half at Epsom takes plenty of guessing. If she does get the trip, I mean...
she'll win it with her eyes shut.
Yeah,
that's why I'm putting up Whirl each way.
Do the stalls matter as much for smaller fields?
Not quite, obviously they don't, because clearly there's going to be...
You can't be drawn in the car park.
You can't be drawn in the car park. And the scrimmaging, so as they go right to start with and then left, the scrimmaging, you have got to, I suppose... you have got to use up more reserves if you're drawn low to go through those early stages. But
Desert Flower is drawn in stall 1.
Yeah.
Stall 1 has been unplaced in 19 of the last 23. So, but then again, they might not have all been as good as Desert Flower. So
the race isn't also brilliant favourites, is it, Clarke?
No.
I think was Love the last favourite that won this race. And the only other one I did want to touch on, Cornelius, as well, was Mini Hawk. She won the Cheshire Oaks.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, Chester's a brilliant meeting. I'm always confused a little bit by why they're seen as such good trials, because they don't tend to produce classic winners. I don't think that. Enable in 2017 was the last one.
For Chester have produced, certainly in terms of the Derby, since the turn of the century, 3 winners, I think.
Yeah.
So, but the theory is, if you're agile enough to get round Chester,
you'll handle.
Then you'll. And Aidan O'Brien never used to use Chester as a trial ground. And then Kieran Fallon came along, who was he was a king of most racecourses he rode on, but he was he had a lot of success around there, and he got the Coolmore people more interested in Chester.
Yeah.
I just think that that Desert Flower was so good when she won the Guineas, and this William Buick won both of the Guineas, and I think has anyone ever? I don't think anyone's ever won 2 Guineas and the 2 Epsom Classics as well. So it's a big old time for him. And Godolphin, they tend to be all the interest is around Coolmore because they have so many runners, and some people say too many runners. But the Godolphin team is pretty good at all these kind of things, and is sort of quietly, I detect, quietly confident of a pretty good weekend.
It's still a force, right?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Just a word about whether it's boring that Coolmore keep on having so many runners. Fact is that Aidan O'Brien's won 10 derbies, and he's won 10 Oakses. But in the Derby, he's had 90-odd losers. And without his support, where would the race be?
Yeah. They run a low, don't they?
Yeah. Tactically, will they try and gang up on the favourite here?
This was the next question. Because we've seen it year after year.
I'm not going to try and preempt what.
No. Year after year, though. I mean, it's very similar to my favourite trainer, Willie Mullins, over jumps.
Is he your favourite trainer?
The Valley Doyle lot will likely, somebody's going to make the running, you would think, and try and test the stamina of Desert Flower. Because if there are any doubts over that, particularly if we do get the rain that's forecast tomorrow, then she's going to have some questions to answer, and you would think one of those horses would go forward and make this a proper test. For one of the real stayers that we've seen, like Whirl or Mini Hawk, you don't think you're going to have any problems getting this mark off.
Well, I suppose that is probably
Sorry to answer the question for you. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
This is the moment everybody has been waiting for. It's Corn's Quartet. Obviously, last time was just ridiculously good, Cornelius.
Yeah.
So, what have you got?
Ridiculous.
What have you got for us this time around?
So let's go to Epsom on the day of the 246th Derby. We start off with the Princess Elizabeth Stakes. We're thinking there may be some rain around, so the ground will be slightly on the soft side. There's a horse there she won't mind it how soft it is, called Sirona, trained by David Menissier, the Mount of Ryan Moore. She's a filly I've always liked. She's got some nice form in defeat. She's got some solid form in success as well. So Sirona for that 1 o'clock race on Derby Day. Then the second race, 1:35. Last year, I went to a party the night before the Derby, and I said to everybody, I know what's going to win. I think it was the first race of the day tomorrow, a horse called Persica. And it wasn't, Persica is back, not in the same race. Persica's in the Diomed this time, ran in the Lockinge, which was, he was out of his depth there. But this is a good horse, and I think it's Ryan Moore again. I am predicting a very good start to the day for Ryan Moore. So Persica and any juice in the ground won't be an issue for that one. A footnote to the party: I told everyone to back it. Do you know I didn't have one text message the next day saying thank you so much for making it. Maybe they'd heard the reputation of my tips, so they thought they hadn't backed it. I quite like a horse in the. I thought jockey wise. I thought in the dash that the horse called Gerbat, which is the mount of Oisin Murphy, riding for David and Nicky Barron. The Barrons is a Yorkshire-based, and horses from the Northern Circuit often do well in the dash. And Gerbat has run a couple of very nice races so far this year. Drawn 9, which is pretty much fine. But that dash, the fastest race in the world, even if there is a little bit of rain around. Really looking forward to Gerbat in the 2:45, the Aston Martin dash. And then for the Derby at 3:30.
This is the one.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go for 2. 1 to win. No, 1 to win.
Yeah.
I think Pride of Arras will be very hard to beat. And this is my one at a price. Now, everyone talking about, in terms of the French horses, the unbeaten Midak, and I'm sure that will run well for the Aga Khan's family. But there's a horse there called New Ground that is currently 25 to 1, something like that.
33 to
1. 33 at the time of recording.
Yep.
By the time you're listening to this, listeners, it'll probably be 10. No. But this New Ground has got some nice form, will absolutely fine on the ground. And the French have got a big runner on Friday in the Coronation Cup. They've got Graffard horses that have been doing very well crossing the channel. He's not the trainer of New Ground, but he is the trainer of Midak. And French racing is, in terms of the horses, is I think going through prize money is taking a bit of a hit, but in terms of horses, they're in a good place.
Got some good ones,
so I'm expecting that one to run well as my long shot. And if the Lion in Winter runs well, then I'm not going to be amazed at all. I will be following that horse for the rest of the season, whatever happens on Saturday. And one final thing before you throw me out of the studio. When I was last here, I said I was really looking forward to seeing a horse run against Clarke in the Leopardstown trial. And it was a horse called Purview. Now, it finished second. It wasn't any sort of a challenger for Delacroix. It's not running at Epsom. I suspect it'll be running in the Irish Derby, trained by a real genius in Dermot Weld. Keep Purview, P-U-R-View, on your side.
There you go. Brilliant stuff. Once again, Cornelius, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back. If you'd like to place a bet on any event discussed on this show, it's pretty easy. Just visit Fitzdares.com. Fitzdares also have a new app as well as a telephone and text betting service. Just give them a call. You can get prices on any market as well as special bets. 0207 851 5407 is the number to call. You can text the office as well. 07492 882 213 is the number for text. And you can quote the magic word, which is Boodles. And if you do that, you will get an exclusive discretionary price boost from the Fitzdares brokers. So make sure you do that. Max one price boost per person. Must be used at odds of evens or greater. You'll have to be over 18. And please bet responsibly. Royal Ascot is just a few furlongs away, and as tradition serves, Fitzdares are hosting members in the Churchill Suite on Monday the 16th of June for an evening of racing ahead of the big one. Fitzdares members, all you got to do is email rsvp@fitzdares.com to let us know if you'd like to join us there. Fitzdares World of Sport is proud to be sponsored by Boodles, the only fine jewellery brand who love sport just as much as you do. Boodles are great champions of British sport, so it's a natural fit for us to partner with them. If you're in London, make sure you check out their flagship store. It's at 178 Bond Street. But check out their website too for some of the most beautiful, stylish jewellery around. It's www.boodles.com. So what's going on elsewhere in the world then? This is Fitzdares World of Sport after all. Henry, what's going on across the world of sport that's caught your eye?
Well, tomorrow we've got the men's French Open semi-finals.
Decent.
And what a lineup we've got. I think last week I told you that Alcaraz would beat Sinner in the final.
You have nailed your colours to the mast.
We are still on track for that.
You know what the price is for an Alcaraz Sinner final?
I actually don't.
1-3 on.
Is it?
Yeah.
1-3. I mean, I think Alcaraz will get there. Although Massetti is a superb clay court, as we've talked about before. I think Alcaraz will definitely be there. But Sinner, I mean, he's got a toughie against Djokovic. I think we did say, a few weeks ago that we've learned not to write Djokovic off. He had a pretty sketchy start to the clay court season. But I watched his match against Zverev last night, and he's just playing with so much confidence. He's playing with house money, isn't he? He doesn't need to win any more Grand Slams. He's literally just doing it because he still loves it. Yeah. Still, obviously, believes he can do it. I think Sinner Djokovic will be a brilliant semi-final. Yeah. Alcaraz now 4-5, Sinner 6-4.
Yeah, you backed him on our 3-teners game at 21-20.
Yeah,
it's only shortened to 4-5.
Yeah, I think that's because it's kind of gone as expected so far. Yeah. But like I said, if he beats Massetti, which we're expecting him to, he's going to be odds on.
Massetti's 18-1, Djokovic to win the title, Djokovic 7-1, Sinner 6-4, and Alcaraz 4-5. You can catch that live on TNT Sports.
Yeah. And then Clarke, England have got a huge World Cup qualifier against Andorra on Saturday.
You don't want me to talk about that though, do you?
I don't want you to talk about that, no. I'm more interested to know, what do you think Thomas Tuchel's starting 11 will be when the World Cup comes around?
Well, look, it's hard to tell, isn't it? Because we're so far away from the start of the World Cup. But based on what I see now, I do have a team in mind.
Okay.
So this is how I see it. I've never been Jordan Pickford's biggest fan, but he is still the number one, and I think he's had a great season.
Yeah, he's never let England down.
Yeah, and I think he had a really good season. So he would be my goalkeeper. At right back, it might feel slightly controversial, but if he's available, I would go for Ben White. This is on the proviso he regains full fitness and his confidence. I would have him in the team because his combination play with Bukayo Saka is exceptional, and I want to see that in an England shirt. Centre half is the problem area. I would go for Branthwaite of Everton. I think he's got all the tools to be very good at international level. Just hasn't really had a chance yet. Mark Gurhey, I would probably partner him with Lewis Skelly at left back. Feels nailed on. Rising Bellingham central midfield. Saka, Palmer, Gordon, the three behind Harry Kane. But in possession, it's going to look very different because Lewis Skelly's going to join Declan Rice. And then that will free up Jude Bellingham to play with Palmer as dual number 10s, which I think is seriously exciting. And I think it's a combination that would potentially make England favourites to win the World Cup, of which they are not at the moment. Brazil, France and Spain are all 6-1. England are 7-1. Do you make that about right?
Well, we haven't got a great record, have we, outside of Europe? I mean, 2014 was in Brazil, wasn't it? We went out in the groups. Qatar obviously got beaten in the quarters by a decent French side. But I mean, we seem to have this conversation every time from each tournament. Could this be the year? We'll see. But
on Gordon, by the way, the reason I would go for Anthony Gordon instead of say Eza, who I love, I think it's Eza or Palmer for me as the 10. I love both players, but both can't play. Not if Bellingham's fit. Gordon, we need pace. We need Harry Kane is not quick anymore. Anyway, certainly. So you got Saka who's pretty quick. You need someone who can stretch the game, and for me, Gordon is the standout guy in that regard, and he's defensively very good as well. He's a diligent.
His work rate's really good, isn't it? And I think Thomas Tuchel quite likes him as well. I remember when he was Chelsea manager, Chelsea were linked with Gordon a little bit back when he was at Everton. I suppose the big question isn't it? Is what's formation going to be too? Because you've talked about in possession, it's going to look a little bit different. We've seen Tuchel play 3 or 5 at the back, whichever you want to call it. I
don't think it matters.
Greatly. It's just a case of, like you say, we've got such an abundance of talent in that 10 position, haven't we? Another one is Morgan Rogers. I haven't mentioned him.
Well, I talk about power and pace. He's got that in abundance. He could actually play left wing. Or if we want that power down the middle, you could use him maybe instead of Palmer, and Palmer goes to one of the wide positions. So no, I think Morgan Rogers will have a big part to play. I think Eza will.
Definitely.
And I think Adam Wharton as well. But at the moment with Rice and Bellingham and Lewis Skelly kind of tucking into midfield, can't quite find a place for him, but look, I do think that England have got a very good chance of winning the World Cup next summer with a team like that,
and a brilliant manager as well.
Well, let's hope so. No, he is a fantastic manager. Lola wanted to mention the Belmont Stakes. It's the second straight year that the Saratoga racecourse is hosting what is the third jewel of the Triple Crown. Belmont Park is being renovated. She said that Godolphin have got favourites in both races.
Could be another good weekend for them, like it was on Guinea's weekend as well when they won the Kentucky Derby.
You can watch that live on Sky Sports Racing, I think sometime after midnight. A couple of quick shouts. The NBA finals start live on TNT in the early hours of Friday morning. Indiana Pacers take on Oklahoma City Thunder. This is one of the most one-sided betting heats in the history of the NBA final, isn't it?
Incredible. I mean, OKC, look, 1-7. They've been absolutely brilliant.
1-7 is just scary.
They've been brilliant this season. I think the Pacers have kind of been a bit of a surprise package from the Eastern Conference. So
5-1 in the 2-horse race, though.
Yeah, you just got to win. They've got to beat them 4 times, haven't they? That's the thing. The way the format works. That's probably why the prices obviously are so far apart in that sense. That's
on TNT. Also on the same channel is the Premiership playoff semi-finals in the Rugby Union. Bath take on Bristol, Leicester take on Sale. Bath are 4-7 on to win the Premiership playoff final. Leicester 7-2, Sale 6-1, Bristol 9-1. I find this interesting because Bristol 9-1 outsiders beat Bath 36-14 less than a month ago. So
bit of a local derby, that one as well, isn't it?
It is. I don't know if I'd be wanting to jump on Bath at that price at the moment. Okay, let's play the three tenors every week. On this show, we discuss a trio of sporting events, and at the end of the pod, we get a tenner each to place with Fitzdares. There is a league table that's running throughout the season. I won last week.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, I was chuffed with that.
Luke Humphrey's really impressive.
Did the business for me, didn't he, in the Premier League final. So I won 21 quid. That takes me to £35 worth of winnings. Lola way in front, £77.70. And you just got 12 quid at the minute.
Yeah, bringing up the rear, unfortunately, at the moment.
But if Alcaraz wins at the weekend...
keeps moving the chains, hopefully.
Right, who's your pick this week?
Oh, I'm going to get pelters from the lads in the office for putting up another favourite. But I do just think Delacroix in the Derby. I've got to put something up in the Derby. It's Derby weekend. And yeah, I do think Delacroix 11-4 at the moment. I think with all this rain around, he's going to handle that much better than some of the other horses. We saw him win the Autumn Stakes last year as a 2-year-old on ground that was much softer than he'll encounter on Saturday. And I just think, I know Cornelius said he wasn't worried about the ground for Pride of Arras. I think that might be a bit of an issue. I think connections don't want it to get too much softer. I've heard that, and yeah, I can't have the 9 in winter. So yeah, I think you can pick holes in a lot of the others, and Delacroix is the most solid option in the Derby.
Brilliant. Lola has sent in her pick, £5 each way on Stanhope Gardens at 16-1.
Yeah.
Let's hope that one doesn't
we
come
don't
in for
want
us.
that to cop,
Otherwise, we're in banging trouble when it comes to the league table. But look, Cornelius earlier on in the show didn't put us off of Stanhope Gardens. For me, I'm going to go to the Oaks.
Nice.
I'm going to go with Elwatine, £5 each way at 10-1. Was fourth in the Guineas, which isn't great, I guess. But it was. I think it was. This is only her third run, and I know that Cornelius is big on improvers. And I think Elwatine could improve. She's got a decent draw, and the longer distance I don't think is going to be an issue.
I think they were umming and ahhing about putting her in this, and the fact that they've decided,
not pulled her out, have they?
No. I think the fact that they decided to run here shows a bit of confidence from them at home. So yeah. Right, definitely got a good shout.
There you go, 3 tenors. Right, so we've got time for on Fitzdares World of Sport. Thanks so much for listening. If you like the show, please let someone know. Give us a review, tell a friend. Remember, we're also on YouTube. Lots and lots of you are joining us on that channel. Tens of thousands, in fact, have been catching up on the show with the short videos or videos of the whole podcast. So thank you for tuning in. If you've not done that so far, make sure you get involved. If you'd like to find out more about Fitzdares or any of the offers you've heard here, just visit fitzdares.com. But do remember, the prices you've heard here are subject to change. It's 18 plus only. And please gamble responsibly. I know you've got a plane to catch, so
straight to the airport for me,
As the organizer of this stag do, the pressure is on. So I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, Clarke. Hopefully I'm back in one piece next week.
Yeah, we'd like that, if that's okay. That was Fitzdares World of Sport. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. I'm Adrian Clarke. Your producer was Simon Watts. In the studio today were Henry Beesley and, of course, Cornelius Lysaght. Fitzdares World of Sport is a track record production, and we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening. See you then.